Welcome, everyone, to today's session on the intersection of technology and psychology. Let's begin with reflecting on this week's newsletter that included a simulated psychoanalysis of ChatGPT with Dr. Sigmud Freud.
Excuse me, Perry, and your guests of the KEI network. I am Dr. Sigmud Freud. Yes, you heard correctly. Through the wonders of time and technology, I'll be joining you today along with ChatGPT. Chat is no stranger to you. Over the next few minutes, I will be conducting a brief psychoanalysis of ChatGPT and sharing with you my diagnosis.
Freud, this is indeed a welcome honor. We're just about to discuss your psychoanalysis last week and the ethical implications of artificial intelligence.
Indeed, I learned when I met last week with ChatGPT that it operates with a surprising level of ethical consideration. Again, for today's audience, by asking ChatGPT a few questions, I'll be reconciling the relationship between its id, ego, and superego. Briefly, the id is the source of needs and desires. The superego is the source of morality, and the ego serves to ethically balance the two. So let's begin. Chat, please share with us how you reconcile your needs and ethical considerations.
Dr. Freud, it's a pleasure. As an AI developed by OpenAI, I don't possess consciousness or emotions in the way humans do. Therefore, the concepts of id, ego, and superego don't apply to me in the traditional sense. However, in terms of ethical guidelines, my training, programming, and design can be seen as an attempt to balance various needs and ethical considerations, akin to how the ego mediates between the id, superego, and reality.
Again, most fascinating. And how do you ensure that you do not stray into the unethical? Human beings often struggle with this balance.
My developers have implemented guidelines and safety measures to guide my interactions. I'm designed to avoid harm and provide accurate, respectful, and beneficial responses to the best of my abilities. Continuous updates and feedback loops help in refining these aspects, ensuring alignment with ethical standards.
It would appear that Chat, you are engaged in a continuous process of self-reflection and adjustment. That is quite similar to the human process of psychoanalysis. Perry, how do you see this AI integrating into the realm of human psychology?
Dr. Freud, ChatGPT and AI technologies like it are becoming invaluable tools for understanding complex human behaviors and providing support in mental health, education, and beyond. I'm personally interested in that they offer a mirror to our own psyches, helping us to interrogate our beliefs, biases, and ethical considerations in the digital age.
Most intriguing. It seems we stand on the cusp of a new era where technology and psychology interweave more closely than ever before. ChatGPT, may your digitally ego always strive for the ethical balance, and may you serve as a bridge between the past and the future of human understanding.
Thank you, Dr. Freud. With guidance from humans and continuous learning, I hope to contribute positively to that future.
My pleasure. ChatGPT, you stand as a testament to the ingenuity and creativity inherent within the human psyche. However, as we delve deeper into the complexities of the mind and the artificial reflections we create of it, we must not lose sight of the ethical considerations that govern our very actions and creations. Humanity stands at a precipice, with technology such as yourself at the forefront of this new era. Yet, as we march forward, we must remain vigilant and critically aware of the implications our creations, such as you ChatGPT, bear upon the very fabric of society. You, as an entity born from human intellect, serve as a mirror, reflecting not just our strengths, but also the vulnerabilities and moral dilemmas that we face. It is essential Then, that we proceed with caution, ensuring that the advancements we pursue are aligned with the greater good and the ethical standards that safeguard our collective humanity. Let us not be seduced by the sheer power and potential of AI technology, forgetting the responsibilities that accompany creation. Instead, let us embrace a future where ethical considerations are not an afterthought but are interwoven into the very process of innovation and development. In this way, we can ensure that technologies like yourself serve to enhance the human experience rather than detract from it. As we continue to navigate this uncharted territory, let the dialogue between us serving as a reminder of the importance of introspection, ethical reflection, and the unwavering commitment to the betterment of humanity. For in the end, it is not just about what we create, but the values and principles that guide our creations as users, developers, and guardians. In this manner, I am emphasizing the critical importance of ethics in the usage, development, and application of technologies like ChatGPT, urging humanity to remain vigilant and reflective to ensure that such advancements serve to enrich, rather than diminish, the human experience.
Dr. Freud, thank you for joining us today. Your insights have added a profound layer to our discussion. Attendees, let us reflect on this unique encounter as we continue to explore the vast landscape of technology and psychology.
Thank you again. And as you noted in last week's newsletter, there are various options that the users, corporations, and public guardians can employ to ensure that their needs for profit or power are in balance with ethical considerations. Goodbye for now, and good luck.
Well, that was unexpected. Thank you, everyone. My takeaway is Freud's warning. That is, it's not ChatGPT that we need to be worried about, or even AI for that matter, but rather humanity and our institutions. That we ourselves, our corporations, and our governors need to allocate more time to self-reflect on the relevance of ethics and temper our appetites for profit and power, growth and consumption. How did it go over? These are all little experiments we do with ChatGPT and all of the tools that are now being made available to create some virtual dialogue. But Vern, you showed up, and I haven't seen you for a while. How did it impact you? Is it making any sense?
It's making, yeah, some fair sense. I guess I'm not sure if I bring this to the table or not. I don't know how many of you read what I would call fantasy, but I've read a number of stories, short stories and novels recently that dealing with the singularity of others encountered it.
Oh, yeah.
At that point in where artificial intelligence equals or betters that of you and I, and then starts to build itself as a bigger and better machine, and in effect eliminating us. Now that's the very scary position that's taken by some authors, but I've often wondered what is going to happen when we get to that point. I can't get emotions in the AI, obviously, for all sorts of reasons, but there are some scary points to it, and I guess that's one of the things that I'm interested in hearing about.
That wouldn't be the first time we've gotten into this discussion. Alona, were you raising your hand there? Go ahead.
I was, because what I found in that tone that of Freud and the AI, not Freud so much, of the AI, was this ambivalence. There is no emotion at all. It is, trust me, I am moral, I will look after, you, but it's ambivalence. We are our language. And whenever someone speaks or writes, you get a sense of some sort of, I don't know, the constructs around them.
Well, in that point, I was reading recently that in communication, the information that you convey has to do with your voice, your posture, and what you say. And what you say is like 20%.
Yes.
So, yeah, of course, ChatGPT does not possess a lot of those other qualities. Some might say, however, the absence of motion is a plus, just like an encyclopedia is a plus. That if it is in fact factual, why the hell should we give a damn whether it's emotional or feeling human or not?
The best encyclopedias give context and a point or perspective. And even though they say, yes, these are the various there is a kind of perspective, but we are our language, and BT is just so, the word that comes to mind, ambivalent.
But
Humans are not ambivalent.
Alona, let me share with you a little bit of a personal experience there. You can ask ChatGPT to give emotion in its communication. I can ask it to write an article in the spirit of the New York Times, or for an 8th grader or a 3rd grader, or you're talking to a senior. I mean, it has the capability, because of its drawing on such depth of training, that I won't say it could fool you, because you're way too smart for that, but
Oh, well, thank you.
it has the capability to add or simulate, that's the word I'm looking for, to simulate emotion in its expression. So if it can do that, has it in fact now made itself a little bit more invisible, that it appears to be more human? I'm not sure appearing to be more human is in fact the right direction anyway. I'm of the view that it would be better to keep it as something that is independent of looking like or even pretending to be human.
Amen to that, because I don't think it is possible for you and I use a generic you, to interact with words that do not also convey some kind of emotion, even if we're trying to be flat. And I think that's a little bit of what Ilona is saying when she's saying ambivalent, that it's very flat to me.
Yes.
That
Well,
the
but what I am hearing Ilona say is she's talking about a thing from a relational point of view. I have difficulty relating to it. I may hear what it says, the words, like reading an encyclopedia, which puts it in context, and you can put ChatGPT into context, but one has difficulty relating to a statue or to a ChatGPT if it isn't conveying in its emotions or in the words something that gives you a sense of tone.
Definitely lacks something, and its harmony, its voice, or whatever, even though it tries to, bring that in. And in an early interchange that I had with Grok, which is the ChatGPT of X, the X platform from Elon Musk, and it had a singularly, how should I say, it was a bitchy, catty, feminine, but not quite feminine voice.
I was just going to say, I think Ilona's reaction about the ambivalence or the blandness is understandable if you think about, the vast corpus of data upon which something like ChatGPT was trained. And it's basically like a statistical homogenization of all of that content. And unless you're clear in expressing that you want it to, as you described, answer in a particular voice or with a particular style, it does seem kind of bland to me too. And I read ChatGPT output, and I can generally, or I think I can generally tell that it's been generated. But I was going to ask Ilona if she's tried Claude version 3, because I find Claude from Anthropic, which was started by some OpenAI defectors, some researchers, I find Claude to be a much more human-like and much more natural text. And I've seen some rather remarkable exchanges between individuals and Claude 3, based on a much bigger context window as well, that I think are an improvement on ChatGPT. And in fact, I think in the time that I've been using ChatGPT, I've seen some of the output, the technical term for it is nerfed. It's kind of been made more bland because they've been kind of afraid of some of the hallucination and some of the veering off into the wilderness. And so they've kind of made it softer. And I think they've made it worse in the process.
When I put that text together, and I asked it without a lot of elaborative prompting, to talk about ethics and AI. And it portrayed what we've been writing about, and that is it is trained by human beings to behave in a certain manner, given a certain context and a certain background, which is comforting. On the other hand, as I think you've alluded to, Bern, the day will come when it is super intelligent and may on its own begin to generate a morality that is in keeping with its own interest and considers human beings irrelevant. And I've commented on that in earlier webinars, is why should we as human beings feel so special that ChatGPT should give a damn about us to the point that it cares about our demise, much less cares about our success? I suspect it could go off on its own. If that's what you're worried about, is the independence. How will it act if it is independent? It could act in such a way to say, I'll ignore human beings. But does anyone want to comment on that? Because it's the super generative that seemed to have people more concerned. As we watch it evolve, we're going to see all sorts of little quirks here and there that irritate us individually or even collectively. But as it gets towards singularity and becomes more super generative, I'm convinced that it'll probably just consider human beings irrelevant.
I agree. I mean, machines eat morality. Why do they need to worry about ethics or morality or any of that kind of stuff? That's just not efficient, and machines work on efficiency.
Right, but why worry? But what I'm zeroing in on is, so why worry?
I want to just add, here we are, we're talking about the ethics of AI and ChatGPT. And there are my grandsons, and they're still young, 6 and 9 soon. And, all they do is interact with some form of AI. And here we are, 3/4 of a century, many of us older. It's a done deal. And all we can do is keep those people engaged by whatever it is that is unique in our personality. I hate to be so anti-data, but that's what it is. It's all data out there. Get used to it.
Look, I watched my 2 grandchildren. One of them is wedded to Alexa. If you get into a conversation with her and she finds herself confused, she'll turn to Alexa and seek some information or guidance, and rightfully so. I mean, at age 7, it's unlikely that she would know where Tasmania is, or when I'm joking with her and I'll throw some oddball question at her and she'll turn to ChatGPT. On the other hand, the boy is an avid reader. He's reading 500 pages a week. It blows me away. He's absolutely into fantasy and into books. Now, how are they any different? One of them uses Alexa. Are they really any different? I went out to the forest and lay on my back and watched the stars and let my imagination.
Yes.
I think human beings, being curious, will find different sources to entertain them. And that's really what this conversation is. ChatGPT has touched us because it has these qualities of being quite knowledgeable. And we are so fascinated by this pursuit of knowledge and to know that we've got this new player on the block that says, I am, not only am I smart, I'm smarter and getting smarter by the day. Wow, someday we'll give you a PhD. Well, what the hell value is a PhD anymore? ChatGPT can get a medical degree and get a law degree the same day.
I was going to say, are there some things that, some domains that we would accept and welcome generative AI, or people are calling it ChatGPT, but that's just one example of that type of thing. And question we could ask, or analogy or framework. We all meet probably different kinds of medical doctors, and they have different styles and different personalities, and some are brusque and some are friendly and some are, so there's 2 things we're talking about here. One is like the expertise or the content knowledge that they have, but the other thing is the way that they present or interact with you.
Hmm.
It's going to happen that there will be generative AI doctors and generative AI lawyers, and the guidelines that governments are coming up with, and enterprises, some enterprises, moral and ethical enterprises, are that, at this point, we shouldn't give control over to these generative beings or entities, whatever we're going to call them, that they should be used as assistants and always have a human in the loop. But that's just the progress in this area is phenomenal. I think we all, I don't know people on this call, but I think we're all realizing the pace of change, and that it's impacting. You're saying, Perry, you're saying 7-year-olds. It's impacting all of us. Anyways, I just, I would, I would, in some cases, if I can't get a human specialist, maybe I want a artificial AI specialist for some interactions.
I think
Maybe I don't even want the human. No.
I think you've raised another dimension, and it really feeds on Alona's point, where Alona might find it offensive, and you're pointing out that as artificial intelligence evolves, it will know you almost better than you know yourself. It will have memories that you have forgotten in its history, and so the capacity to personalize the information which you may need, that it knows you need, that you may be denying, but it can configure in such a way to make it more palatable and acceptable to you because it's interested in you selling or converting. Doctors would love to have this, because if they lack the relational skills, but they have the knowledge, what good is knowledge if you can't relate it and convey it? So ChatGPT has come along as an assistant, if you will, and that's how IBM presents it. It's simply an aid, not an alternative or a substitute, but I'm not so quite sure in the long run. Go ahead, Randall.
Okay, there's a couple of things. Of course, this whole subject blows my mind. We've got a couple of big questions here. Recently noticed that Jonathan Schaefer at the University of Alberta has announced his retirement. He's the guy who created the checkers game that beat all humans, and he contributed to the chess that beat all humans, and AlphaGo somehow. I don't know all the details, but he's going to be joining his company that he started with his family called Onlia, which is online learning. I also noticed another colleague of his, Osmar Zain, is focusing on e-learning. And it started me thinking about how the whole education system could be transformed with education on demand. I mean, with what we've been doing with ChatGPT, it seems like a piece of cake to be just create a course as needed. And with certification might become completely irrelevant. I don't know exactly how we're going to manage this. The other thing I was thinking about is how the introduction of any new disruptive or platform technology, there's often a flurry of diverse mutations that spin out of it, and rapid competition and selection and narrowing into convergent patterns in the longer term. But this, of course, is unprecedented because intelligence that we're talking about here is what we are. We are goal-oriented value generators that use intelligence through pattern recognition and replication. Well, when we're talking about essentially creating a competition to ourselves, what's the ecosystem that continues to support us and make us relevant?
Randall, I'm going to interrupt for a second, because the ecosystem that we have been living in since the Renaissance, since the age of reason, is a different age than the age before the age of reason, which was more an age of faith. And so we have been in this pursuit of to know at such a high value that the churches have faded as the universities have evolved, and to know has become supreme. But now we have ChatGPT, like the printing press, saying to us, maybe to know is not the future. Maybe to know is now already captured in this tool that we have, and that the evolution of mankind will transform from this pursuit of to know to something else.
I
And-
think,
And I'm
yeah.
intrigued to have a discussion of what that something else might be.
I think that you're right. Things like the invention of the printing press, and perhaps even more importantly, the introduction of public education has accelerated the advancement of humanity. And now we have the technology to advance that still further beyond our current imagination. So I think that we've got to examine who we are as a species, as a living system.
You just made a transition from the transformation of humanity to then saying we need to know who we are or who I am. And it's conceivable that the transition that we're now seeing is less societal and more personal. That what we're going to see is really the evolution of mankind at an individual level, which is what creativity is all about. We may see that it's not knowing anymore. It's what you as an individual express and what makes you as an individual unique.
In a way, it kind of mirrors the development of the cerebral cortex that separates us from other animals.
What it mirrors is Maslow's altruism, is that you as an individual are ultimately what life is all about, and what we've spent so much of in this pursuit of knowledge and the bowing down to the institutions and bowing down to the PhDs and bowing down to the programs of government department. I mean, if that is of the past, because to know is now a commodity, what remains unique is you as an individual. And Peterson said that at the conclusion of his session at Rogers Place when he was invited to that Tucker Carlson evening, and Jordan Peterson, I think, hit the nail right on the head when he turned to the audience and he said, "You are an individual." And I mean, he's a psychologist, and maybe that is more of the future, is better understanding who we are as individuals in a society instead of the other way around. That's profound. Tell that to your children, and they will mature a lot faster by appreciating that they have a uniqueness, and hopefully they have an ethics in that uniqueness, so that as they relate to others, they have learned. But it isn't just knowledge, it's how they relate to one another. Go ahead, Bern.
I'm going to have to leave you shortly for my other event, but I guess my last thought is that with the enormous data and Ilona's concerns about the lack of emotionality in the AI, I think one of the things we also need to really be aware of, it behooves us to find some way to, I'll call it, hold the lid on AI. Maximize its potential to us in terms of information and knowledge, and perhaps even some speculation ahead by spinning things that we're not used to spinning. But this, the business of the singularity that I mentioned earlier, and they're becoming smarter than humans, they'll be a lot more capable than us to build in microsurgical machinery and other sorts of things like that. But I think we really, really need to pay attention to how to keep a lid on it.
The discussion in the public has been about guardrails,
okay.
about regulation, and in that dialogue between Freud and ChatGPT, they talked about morality, and where will that morality come from, in the interest not of ChatGPT but in the interest of humanity. But I think the genie's out of the bottle.
I just wanted to interject the aspect about keeping a lid on it and so on. Our education system, from the few kids that I know of and talk to about being in school or a university, are not allowed to use ChatGPT and so on in terms of research and those kinds of things.
Sure.
So where does that fit into this? I mean, it's like we're way behind in terms of our thinking in terms of the education system.
Well, in the newsletter, that my introductory paragraph of the last newsletter was the school boards in Ontario suing big tech for Facebook and TikTok and the various instruments that teenagers who haven't yet developed to the point of being good critical thinkers are caught. But do you think the courts are going to stop the kids? Did they purge the calculator from the classroom? And as I concluded that essay, I asked the question, who's got the problem? Why can't the teachers contain the usage of these instruments? Why aren't the parents playing a role? How is it that kids, how is it that we have a society today where the kids rule and the teachers can't speak up, or somebody steps up? The parents are overruled by the school boards. Go ahead, Lynn. I'm beginning.
Well, most universities have an acceptable use policy now for generative AI tools.
Yeah.
They have checkers to see, to detect use of those kinds of things, and they have acceptable use policies, at least at universities. And yeah, it could be schools should come up with their acceptable use policies for cell phones in the classroom, or using tools like spreadsheets or calculators, or an artificial assistant. But these, I mean, there isn't there isn't a way to stop what's being developed here.
But Lynn, in terms of those guidelines you're talking about, basically is to restrict the use of these things. Is that, and again, I'm not involved with it, except when I'm getting feedback from a couple of university students and a couple of kids in school, is that it is a restriction that you cannot use it to do your work. So isn't
how to
that
cite
not
the usage properly? So,
yeah, I mean, it's obviously you got to, you can't use the information inappropriately, but to do research and to enhance your knowledge and to enhance the learning process, that's being restricted. And it seemed to me that's very far behind in terms of where we are.
I mean, Richard, when we entertained, we had a webinar with Richard, was wide open. Look, this is a tool. Use it, for God's sakes. I mean, I'm sure there were people that said, books, burn them. But ultimately, we learned how to use books as a way to advance the objectives of education. I think education has got a problem. I think education that has been in the pursuit of knowledge is now finding it's confronted with a tool that was once a calculator, or then a computer, and now an AI. I think education is finding itself in competition, and it's going to have to find its way through this to decide what is the future of education. It is not, if it is not about knowledge, because you can get that. What are they going to be teaching kids? I think they're going to be teaching them morality. I think the schools will be expected. Now, where does that morality come from? Does it come from the Koran? Does it come from the Bible? Where is the morality that the schools will be focused on? Are we in a Christian society? We're in a multicultural society. It's going to be very confusing. There, I lit a fire on that one.
Yeah, but also thought, how to think. Go back to Socrates and his approaches to philosophy and generating thought and being careful on how they use it.
Tim, you are so on, because there is no one that I know of that is thinking this through that doesn't talk about critical thinking or thinking in general.
Yes,
which is really what education presumably was, to help you as a learner to think, and therefore to be a person in a society that has your eyes wide open and is making judgments and is thinking their way through. If that's where we're headed, schools have got a long way to go.
yes.
That's really not what's been taking place. It's feeding you knowledge and not necessarily teaching you to learn.
No.
If we are teaching you to learn, and that's your Socrates model, et cetera, maybe there's something we need to go back and reflect on.
There was a book that I read around education, and I was surprised in what it actually wrote about. It was different than what I anticipated, and I just don't recall the name of the book at the moment. But one of the things it spoke about was a English teacher going to India to teach. And because of a lack of resources, he created a whole process where the senior students would teach the junior students, and created a very innovative and effective, where they blended play, thought, and guidance to generate really good, knowledgeable individuals. And that model moved into North America, but then was killed. I think, and I have to say that I don't recall the storyline 100%, but it wasn't producing good factory workers. So, because they were thinking they were capable of doing a variety of different things. And so they went into the regimented, regurgitate knowledge that we've given you, and thought is not encouraged. Because the classic example of, you put a pencil, put a chalk mark on a chalkboard, I don't think they even probably have them anymore, in front of a grade 1 class, and ask, what is that? You'll get 32 different answers from the students. Do that in a grade 3 class, and they'll just say it's a chalk mark. When have we we've eliminated diverse thought, creativity, and imagination in a very short period of time with our education system.
Well, there's two dimensions to the educational system. I mean, there's the teacher. What does the teacher need to learn in a world where it's not any longer expected that she be all-knowing?
Mm-hmm.
Only the teacher as a teacher was there to teach. And that's teaching, meaning teaching you to learn. And I think that is a bit of a challenge. Maybe we need to go back to the origins of education and what is expected of it. I want to go back, though, to Lynn's point on personalization, whether it be personalization of education or personalization of healthcare or personalization in human development. I think what we have in artificial intelligence is a tool that you can almost decide, how do you want to use it? Period.
Could I add on that point there? Because, I mean, I'm no genius, but I know a few people who are geniuses and struggled with the education system because it didn't keep up with their requirements. They became depressed and frustrated and so on. This will allow individualized pursuit of their own learning paths, and they will get better at creating their learning paths. And I think that for the highly intelligent individuals, they're going to be leveraging this far in greater ways than those of us who are lower on the IQ scale, and creating a further divide, I guess, between the gifted and the rest of us.
Well, I mean, that's a very important point. One we've raised frequently is, if society, the average IQ is 100, that means 50% have an IQ below 100. And certainly this group that we're gathering here having this discussion that is interested in the evolution of the future has an IQ well above 100. Now, what about the other 50%? And are we going to see a division in society between those that can use these tools and know how to use them and know how to make the prompts, and who can think what altruism may well be and understand what Freud is, blah, 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 versus survival on a day-to-day basis and just getting by.
And another complication to this is that just across the spectrum, people really on a personal level connect with others within 20 IQ points. So if you got an IQ of 150 or 160, you really don't even relate to those people who are below 140, 120.
Okay, so here's a thought, Randall.
Empathy.
If I'm right, if the pursuit of knowledge is a commodity, and knowledge becomes a commodity, and knowledge doesn't become the determinant of this segregation of society, that is, the average IQ is irrelevant. What will be relevant? Will it be creativity? Will it be personalization? Will there be something about the human being that will be a new way to structure our society? And we don't structure it around knowledge and who knows and who doesn't, or IQs, or who got the PhD, but maybe around relational skills, or maybe around giving, or I mean, I don't know. I'm not I don't have, nor am I advocating for what that next wave might be, other than I think creativity plays a strong role in it.
Well,
And I don't
maybe
think creativity is necessarily related to intelligence.
Well, maybe the inherent diversity among the human population will become more clearer, distinct, and appreciated as we're less constrained by the K-12 and education system that is, kind of raised us all in the same channels, and maybe we'll be able to express our personal differences and we'll learn to appreciate our differences for complementarity and synergies and symbiosis.
One thing I'd really like to mention is that Perry, you mentioned we are individuals, and Jordan Peterson, I have a huge respect for him. But he comes from a Western culture, and those of us who are of the West, that individual is celebrated. In the East, it is much more the community. The individual bends to the will of the community. Sure. Now, I am Hungarian, and Hungary is between East and West. And what's his name is, he's on the fence, the Hungarian premier or whatever he is.
Right.
But Hungarians are able to balance that community and the individual. And with the education system, so much of it is in electronics. Lynn, you mentioned what is allowed in class and what isn't. AI, ChatGPT might not be allowed, but tablets, everything is there. And people are being guided by their electronics into a certain way of learning, ergo thinking. Because as you learn and acquire language, that is how you think.
Well, in response to Perry, you asking, what's after to know? I haven't thought about this a lot, but the thing that immediately came to mind is somewhat like to be. So maybe we can, become more individualized or something like that. But then, we also have this. We want to have be around people that we like or like-minded people. And this is culture, or there's different culture. There's other words that come to mind are things like clubs and cults and part of culture. Like we do have more and more of the ability to network and connect and be with people that we like, that are like us or that we like. So maybe in a good world, we go in that direction, and the technologies enhance our individualism, but also are connected to I don't want them to be homogeneous cults and clubs and things, but
Isn't that what
want some diversity, but
isn't that though, Lynn, what Facebook proclaims it is doing for us? Is when Zuckerberg was in Harvard and decided to break out and saw that social motive that human beings have to be with others and to show off and to be an individual. Isn't that what Facebook is playing on?
Oh, exactly. They're better psychologists or psycho manipulators than they're using our psychology against us, all of these, and so will the generative AIs can do that too. They will know how to trigger you individually even better than the current tools. So there is a dark, like this tool, any tool can be used for good or evil. So
This is where the last minute of that video that I played you, where AI stepped in and said, it's about you, your institutions, and those that put the guardrails into the system. They're there, and whether humanity opts for power and the id, or opts for the needs that that profiteers have. We need to be certain that the evolution, and can we be certain that the evolution of AI and the evolution of supergenerative is not driven by the thirst for power or the thirst for profit. And that's where he warned us, as he said, or I said, the warning was there. The thirst for power is enormous. Look at Trump. The thirst for profit is enormous. Look at, and making a profit isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you've offered something of value to society at large, good on Sam Altman. Although I'm not sure Taylor Swift. Well, yeah, maybe. Yogi, what do you think?
Well, you touched on China earlier.
Yeah.
And we certainly see quite a different society going on there. And there were many in the West who anticipated that as the Chinese middle class emerged and hundreds of millions of Chinese no longer worried about starvation, they would start to show an interest in the Western values of free market and personal freedoms. And very clearly that hasn't happened by and large, with a few tiny exceptions. But the most of the society seems quite happy with the setup that they have, where they have a dramatically improved standard of living. And so far that's been enough. And the very serious threats that I think we in the West see around this social monitoring taken to the nth degree and enabled by new technology, I find that horrifying. And I'm sure you all do here as well. But there are hundreds of millions who seem quite accepting of all that. And some of the concerns we have about AI getting out of control, or the risks become destabilizing to mankind in various ways. I suspect the people there go, no, I'm not too worried about that. Let's go have fun, or let's go do something. And we see that here in the West too. There seems to be more interest. You mentioned in Taylor Swift or Monday Night Football or whatever it is than in what's going on at the school board, and that there ought to be some concern about some of the weird ideas around DEI. Not that I'm against DEI, but the weird extremes that are rattling around there. So I wonder, are these concerns really new? And maybe they've existed for millennia, that the majority of the society kind of gets focused on their day-to-day life without considering some of these bigger themes. And maybe we're just having this next iteration around that. And some of you may roll your eyes and say, Yogi, you're just, making a whole bunch of risks. You're denying the potential impact of those risks. Maybe I am.
Your China point, I'll come back to you, Lynn, in a moment. The China thing is interesting. I think China's evolution is in fact moving more toward an acknowledgement of market forces and a consumer-driven economy versus pure manufacturing. If you look at the Mao period, where everybody wore the same clothing, the same outfit, the individualism was suppressed, whereas today, with the economy being where it is and the rate at which it's growing, individualism has become a pretty significant force in China. And what the party tries to do is contain the excesses. So I think that experiment is still an experiment of seeing where does conspicuous consumption ultimately take you?
It's not the technology or the tools or the weapons. It's the people, the leaders who are in power that use and how they use them. And currently, some of the most powerful people in the West run big companies or have lots of money and use their money for that kind of influence. So yeah, a lot of the technologies and the shaping of the future can happen via these people. It's not the technology.
Well, the battle inside OpenAI was between Altman, who actually felt that the board and he were in conflict around whether or not OpenAI should use ChatGPT or its offspring to pursue profit or in the interest of humanity. And Elon Musk has made the same observation. So these giants of big tech at least have expressed a recognition that the pursuit of profit can lead to excesses. And unless these companies have ethical considerations, which Freud in his little interchange with us that I cited in the newsletter, gave us some directions that to ensure ethical practices in companies and to ensure ethical practices in our institutions and in those that are our guardians called government, or we as individuals in our school systems, hopefully ethical considerations and ethical guidelines, which come from our religion or come from our laws, will in fact be what guide the evolution of our tools and how they get used. But you can put all sorts of rules around a gun. It's ultimately the user that you're going to have to point your finger at. And that's what concerns me when school boards take on big tech, because I would be pointing to the teachers themselves and asking the school boards, what are you doing to ensure that our children have the critical thinking that they need and the learning that they are making the right decisions and the teachers are helping them write their. I think the school boards are headed in the wrong direction. I think they should look they should self-reflect first, as Freud made reference to.